welcome to eMultiSkills video tutorial. In this video tutorial, we will learn how to use pg_hba.conf. So I have done some pre-work, so I have listed all the steps which we are going to perform for this particular pg_hba.conf. So first of all, let's understand what is pg_hba.conf. So it is a file which is available in the data directory on Postgres server, and it is known as Postgres host-based authentication file. And this is responsible for four things like which host or which IP address are allowed to connect through a particular role, how the clients are authenticated, like they will be using some password or MD5 or some crypt, or and then which PostgreSQL username they can use, or with which role they will be able to log in, and which databases they can access. So all this information is mentioned in pg_hba.conf file. To demonstrate this, let's perform a small demo, and then we will go through all this theoretical part. So the demo which I have is I have two server. One is will be acting as a server where PostgreSQL 12 is running with the IP address 192.168.1.71, and another is 61, which is a client. So let me quickly log into the server, and what we are going to do in this demo is we'll log into the Postgres server. We will create a role with the name user2_remote. We'll give it a login access, and then with this role we will try to log in from the remote server, and we will see what all steps we have to take care when the this particular role is trying to connect from the remote server. So we will be doing two things, in since by default the Postgre do not allow remote access, so we will enable that access, and then we will mention the IP address of the remote server in our Postgre server so that it allows the access. So let's start. So I'm already logged in through the mobile extern, which is a GUI tool, and this can store your IP address, user ID, and password. Since this is a demo environment, so this is good to have it. So I'll just say sudo systemctl status PostgreSQL -12. So you can see the status is active and running. So just switch to PSQL. So I'm onto the command prompt. I'm going to create a user with this particular command. Create role, role name with login and then password. So just say /du and you can see the role. User2_role is created, which is having the uh, login access. It is not having cannot login, so it will be able to log in. Let's quit out of this prompt and then log into the remote server. From remote server, we will try to log in with the details. So the command to log in from the remote server is this one. So I'll just have to say PSQL-u, which is username. The user which we have created is user2_remote -w postgre, and this is the IP address of the server. The server is running on 1.71. Just press enter and feed in the password. So password is password. So this is saying that it is not going to accept the connection, and once the connection is accepted, you will have to, it will prompt for another one. So we will make two changes. One is uh, there is a file which is called as postgresql.conf. So this particular file, there is a parameter which we need to tweak, and the parameter name is local_address. By default, Postgre do not allow remote connection. So just to allow the remote connection, what we have to do is we have to remove the local host entry with the IP address of the server itself. So this will be removed with the IP address of the server itself, which is 192.168.1.71. When you make this change, you have to restart your service. So just make sure that you do that. So we'll save this. And then there is another file which is pg_hba.conf file. So what you have to do is in this we will mention the rule like how the remote server will be able to access. So if you open this file which is owned by Postgre, so you scroll down and there is a section called as IPv4 local connection. So there are five entries which you have to mention. There is type, like we will say it is host based. Which databases you wanted to use, so we'll say all databases. Which user you wanted to connect with, so I'll say user2 underscore remote. With which IP it is coming from, it is coming from 192.168.1.61. And then what authentication method it is using. So there are several. In our case we will be using MD5 so that the password doesn't come in plain text. It will be encrypted, and we'll just add this line. So I have already added that line and just uncommented. The detail is first is host all, then the user ID. All, this is the database, all the databases. This is the user ID, this is the IP address, and this is the authentication method. So just save this. So we have made two changes, one in postgresql.conf where in the local host is replaced with the IP address. In pg_hba.conf, we added the details of the remote host. And we need to restart the service of PostgreSQL because we have changed our parameter. So just restart it. Just check the status. The service is active and running. Now let's try to connect it from the remote host. You can see you are able to log in. You can see all the databases because you have mentioned all. You need access on all the databases. So now let's come back to the theoretical portion of this since we have done this demo. So the first thing is what is pg_hba.conf. The pg_hba.conf is a Postgre host based authentication which takes several parameters. So mainly it is five parameter. One is the host, another is the IP address of that host, then the which databases you wanted to access, and then the method using the password, peer, or trust, or reject. Now, if let's ask few questions and answer it ourselves. What is the usage of pg_hba.conf file? So this file is used for client authentication, which is available on the Postgres server, and this is for the client uh, IP, username, and the database name authentication. It has a number of entries. Mainly there are five columns which defines like which host, what IP address, which database, which user can access. What are the contents of the file? So it has a number of parameters, mainly five parameters. So it is all related to the particular host, user ID, and the database. And when is the pg_hba.conf file is read? So whenever an application requests a connection, the request will mention a Postgre user ID and password. In our case, it was test2 underscore remote. So when PostgreSQL receives a connection request, first of all, what it will do is it will check the pg_hba.conf file, which is Postgre host base authentication file, and it will verify that the machine details are available in that or not. So as soon as it finds the detail, it will either accept the connection or reject it. So it is just the connection. It will not give. It is not related to giving the access to the tables or other stuff. So next question is, do I need to restart the PostgreSQL post a role creation and access connection? So whenever you create a new role in on a PostgreSQL server and a new connection is requested based on that created user ID or the role, you mention a matching entry in pg underscore hba.conf, then it checks whether that entry is available or not, and once it is verified, the access is granted. So you do not need to restart the PostgreSQL server, Postgres server every time you add an entry in pg underscore hba.conf. So what is the sequence of reading the elements in pg underscore hba.conf file? So it is like when a connection is requested, the Postgre will read one entry at a time from top to bottom. So if I show you this is my server, and uh, if you view this hba pg underscore hba.conf file, if we scroll down top to bottom, so it will be coming top to bottom. So in this case, as soon as it finds an entry, let's say I'm trying to connect through this IP address, if there is an entry available, so the access is granted. So you can give the host and then database, either it is all or the particular database name, or let's say there are 5 databases, so you can give let's say the 5 databases are A, B, C, D, and E. So I can mention A, comma B, comma C, comma D, or comma E. Or if there are n number of databases, you can put all the database names in a file, and you can mention the file location over here at the rate and the file location, so it will read from there. And you can mention the user ID over here. If it is more than one, then I think also that is possible. I have not tested, but this should be possible. Again, the concept of more user ID, uh, keeping in a file, you can use that. And then the IP address or the range of the IP address, in this case /24, that means only first three will be constant, and this can be anything between 1 to 254, I believe. And this is the authentication way. The next one, which is very very important, if you haven't if you do not know like how to find the location of pg underscore hba.conf file onto the Postgres server, so you log into sudo su space hyphen postgre. Let me clear this screen. And what I will say is PSQL, and then you have to mention show HBA underscore file. So this will tell you the location of HBA file. If you do not know this parameter name, then by default this is available in your data directory. If you have changed the data directory, you need to check this. So data underscore directory. So most of the time I keep it handy so that I can copy and paste. So this will be available in this particular location. If you don't know much about these commands, if you do not know if it is this is the first time, then you can use the Unix based as well. Or there is a direct command, so you can say psql-t-p format is equal to unaligned, and then you can say show hba underscore file. So it is like it will directly connect to PSQL and then give you the output. This is the file name. Or you can use the find command, which is the Unix command, and this will show you. It takes some time, so let it come out. Till that time, what we will do is we will go further. So this is a sample pg underscore hba.conf file. So there is one local section wherein the concept of Unix socket connection comes. So all the local users, they can be put over here and they will be able to connect. So by default it is all users which are created which try to connect from locally from the server. If it is remote, you have to put the entry in IPv4 local connections. Make sure that your PostgreSQL.conf file has the listen underscore addresses replaced from localhost to the IP address or the star in the previous version. And then you have to mention this particular entry, local host all the IP address, and then the subnet, and then the authentication method. If you wanted to enable all connections using IPv6, you have to mention this. And if you wanted to reject also, so there you can mention the IP address and mention reject. All right, so let's see an example of single host entry. So it is host, which we have mentioned in our case. Either you mention the database name or all the databases, you mention the username, the IP address, then the subnet. If it is like this, let's say the first three will be constant and this can change. So let's make 8 3s are 24, and this is trust, not good, but let's make it MD5. This should not be suggested even. If there is a rejection entry, then you mention the details and particular IP address, fixed subnet, and then you mention reject. If it is script, then also it will look like this. If you wanted to mention about a small network, so just mention host. This is the database or the list of databases. Let's say template 1, 2, 3, 4, or at the rate file name, which consists of n number of databases, or username, or n number of users, and then 192.168.1.0, so 1 to 254 IP address, so they can access, or you can, uh, or let's say you these two will remain constant, and anything in here in between 1 to 254 and here also, so you have a bigger network. And if it is like this, only this will be constant and this will keep on changing. So this is how, so small networking part, but most of the time you will have something like this, only these two might change. So just a recap of what we have done. We did a demo where and there were two server, one was server and another was client. We created a user with the name user2 underscore remote. Then we try to log in from the remote server using this particular command. This is my remote server. So initially when we tried connecting PSQL-u username w database name hyphen h, um, the IP address of the server where Postgre is running, we got this connection refused because initially it was allowing only the local connection. So you have to remove that local connection with the IP address of the server itself. Make sure you are not adding the entry of the client in postgresql.conf, which is the server parameter file. And then we made two changes in two files. One is postgresql.conf and another was pg underscore hba.conf, wherein we added the details of the server, the client where it is running. So we mentioned it like uh, host name. So let me quickly show you this. So the entry which we added is like this. Host, I wanted to access all databases with this particular user ID and this IP address range, and the authentication method is MD5. So this is how this, so this is very important file, because every time you try to make some changes, you create a new user, you create a new role, and it is trying to connect from a particular IP address, then you need to mention those details over here. And so PostgreSQL.conf and pg underscore hba.conf, they go hand by hand. So the first file which you need, if it is your first time the PostgreSQL.conf, you change it from local host to the IP address of the server, or replace it with a star if it is 9 or the older versions. And then you work on hba.conf file, wherein you need to mention all the details related to the remote environment role, which databases, and the IP address. I hope this is more than enough, and in another tutorial you can see more about postgresql.conf. I hope this is going to help, and thanks for watching.